Last month, Defense Secretary Austin directed the department to create an action plan on civilian harm mitigation and response. My guest has conducted an independent assessment of DoD processes and policies relating to civilian casualties resulting from U.S. military operations. Michael McNerney is acting director of the International Security and Defense Policy Center at the RAND Corporation. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mimi.
So there was a military drone strike in Kabul last August that killed 10 civilians, including children. What went wrong?
Well, there were several problems with that strike, all of which related to issues that have been identified in the past. So two examples, misidentification. In other words, the military conducted an accurate strike, but against a person who they thought was a terrorist, who was actually an aid worker. And the second problem was a lack of situational awareness, inability to see what was around the area of that strike, the children and other civilians moving towards the vehicle. So these problems have been identified in past investigations, and some improvements to techniques and procedures have been identified in the past. But those lessons have never been institutionalized. And so what looks like an isolated incident is actually part of a pattern of problems at the department.
So let's go back to what the current state is. So what's the process that DoD follows? I would assume it starts with a report that civilians could have been harmed after an operation?
Yes, if there's an allegation or if the military sees for itself that there's been an incident, the commander can order either an initial assessment, which is just the basic facts, or they can do what's called a CCAR, a civilian casualty. It's a assessment report, civilian casualty assessment report that gives a little more depth. And then they can even go into a full investigation if they decide they need to really understand not just what happened, but why it happened.
So in your report, you say that, most efforts at DoD, and rightly so, focus on preventing civilian harm. But you add that it's important to improve DoD's post-strike assessments. Why?
Well, DoD is famous as being a learning organization. They have an infrastructure and a culture to improve, whether it's through training, professional military education, exercises. They try to shoot better, they try to move better, they try to communicate better. But when it comes to civilian harm, that cycle of learning isn't there.
Found that DoD undercounts civilian casualties. Why is that, and what can be done about it?
Well, the reason I think they undercount, I'll give a quick example. Just in 2019, in Syria, the estimates of civilian casualties using pretty rigorous methods by a conflict monitoring group called Air Wars in the UK, they estimated between 460 and 1,100 civilian casualties, and DoD estimated 21.
So who's right, though?
That's a huge
difference, yes. So who's right, and why is there such a big difference?
We looked at both procedures, and we found the Air Wars mechanisms, their methodology was very rigorous, but DoD's had some flaws. Most importantly, among the flaws was that they tend to discount information from external sources. And so, especially when they are relying a lot on airborne assets to see what's happened, they work pretty well in terms of out in the open, or if they see something related to a vehicle. But if it's in an urban environment or within infrastructure, they have a hard time seeing what's going on, basically in a basement or inside a room. And so that's when you need external sources of information or an on-the-ground investigation. And we found that the military tends to discount those external sources. They don't trust them, they're skeptical, and they have a bit of an adversarial relationship at times with groups that are trying to report on these incidents. And so you get another problem, which is confirmation bias. So if the commander who ordered a strike ordered that strike because they thought there were no civilians in the area, after the strike, they're going to assume that there were no civilians there, even if they hear something to the contrary. So they're going to think, why should I invest my scarce time looking for evidence that's not there? And so they tend not to believe what they hear, because they wouldn't have ordered the strike in the first place if they thought there was going to be an incident like that.
And what about the reporting out and disseminating results of investigations so that there are lessons learned? How well is that handled now?
Well, it's been very inconsistent in the past, so it depends a lot on the personality of the commander. So some commanders see this reporting out process as important to maintain relationships with the local community, maintain relationships with these external stakeholders, and to help their own force improve. They see it as a learning opportunity by reporting out what's happened and sharing the information. Other commanders have made that a priority, not necessarily hiding anything, but just focusing on other matters. And the people that may be in charge of collecting that information, we found, are often junior people, understaffed, don't have a lot of training. And so then the reporting comes out very sporadically, if at all. And we even found examples where an investigation would be conducted and the person or people involved in the incident itself never got the feedback from the investigation into their own incident.
All right. Well, Mike, the deadline for the DoD action plan is the end of April. We will follow up again then. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.